Hello, welcome back to my channel. For today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how I made this Regal purple and gold geometric cake with a lot of added texture. This one reminds me a little bit of Halloween, but with a little bit of sophistication at the same time. So let's get right to it. We're going to go ahead and stack our tiers, and I'm just using a thickened buttercream to create a dam, and then I'm filling in with my regular buttercream. Now the thickened buttercream is the same buttercream recipe that I use all the time, and I will attach a link, just with a little added powdered sugar to thicken it up to keep that filling from squeezing out the sides. And we're going to do this all the way up the cake. Now I like to go back in and kind of backfill a little bit just to make sure I have enough of that dam. And then I stuck that straw in there, since it's a tall cake, to keep it from going lopsided in the freezer while it's set up. This is a very humid day, so I find a little extra added precaution never hurts, and nobody's going to notice that one little straw in the cake. I did end up leaving them in there, and you'll see how I do that in a second here. Now I'm doing my crumb coat after they have chilled for about 20 minutes in the freezer. 10 to 20 minutes for each layer. Then I'm going in just with that American buttercream and scraping off the excess, and then I cut the extra length off of that straw and just pushed it in. You could pull it out if you wanted to, but since it was so humid, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't gonna slip and slide and get all wonky on me. So I just left it in there, and that's just fine. And then you're gonna go ahead and do the same with each tier, and again, put them in the refrigerator for 20 minutes or the freezer for 10 minutes. Until your buttercream is dry and firm and you can touch it and it does not stick to your finger. Then you can go in with your next layer. This doesn't have to be a completely clean look. Just as clean as you can get it without spending too much time on it. And let those firm up. And in the meantime, I'm making some chocolate. I'm melting some chocolate candy melts. I'm trying to kind of get close to that purple of the fondant. It's a very vibrant color of purple, and it's really kind of hard to get when you're mixing chocolates together, and these are just candy melts. So I mixed, all I could find was a lavender purple, which would not be deep enough. I added some royal blue candy melts, and then I ended up going in and adding a little bit of black food coloring gel just to add a little depth. Now it's not exactly the same color as the fondant, but you know, color always oxidizes a little deeper. So I thought it would be fine. And what I'm doing there is tapping out those air bubbles while I'm spreading it on the silicone mat. Now you want to leave this about 1/8 of an inch thick. You don't want to spread this too thin because we're going to be cutting some circles out of this chocolate when it sets up. And just kind of get it nice and smooth as you can get it. Doesn't have to be perfect. We can use the other side if that side is smoother. Now I pop that in the freezer until, actually no, I didn't. I set it aside while I am mixing the color for the royal icing that I'm going to use to make the texture. Now I just I used Regal purple. These are color gels, Regal purple, some royal blue, and then some black to try to get to that color of the fondant. And just use a little bit of foil, just scrunch it up, and this is going to be for my toppers. I'm using that same candy melt mixture, and just after I crinkle them up and lay them, spread them out a little flatter, go ahead and use a spatula to spread some on there, and I just draped them over these bowls so I had some curvature. Now I did it texture side down so that it's more about the textures on the inside of the bowl. I'm just going to call them bowl, or you can call them flags if you want to, the side that's going to show on the cake. And I set this at room temperature for about 20 minutes to cool down a little bit so I could go in with my circular cookie cutters and cut the circles out of them before I froze it. You want it to be dry enough, cool enough that you can get the cookie cutter in there and make the impression, score it. I guess we'll call it pre-scoring, but not so cool that it's gonna crack. So you kind of have to find that happy medium. And put that in the freezer to set up, along with your toppers. Now we're going to go in and do a crumb coat of the chocolate ganache, which is 3 parts chocolate to 1 part heavy cream, melted together and mixed smooth, and let it cool for a while so that you can spread it. It's a spreading consistency, kind of like peanut butter. Now I'm going to get this gold effect by using the chocolate ganache. That's why I went with the chocolate ganache over the buttercream crumb coat, because I'll show you how I do that gold. So you don't have to worry about airbrushing gold onto your cake or mixing vodka or any other kind of a alcohol or food or extract with your luster dust to create the gold. I think this is just a way easier way to do it. Now, I did do 2 coats of the ganache on each tier. And just clean up your board. Now we're going to go ahead and roll out a piece of fondant that is the same height and width as the cake. I roll it out a little bit bigger, and then I go back in, measure it, and cut it to size. Now, if you have one of these mats, these sewing self-adhesive mats, there's a quilting self-adhesive mat, you can use the markings on the mat itself to help you with your cutting. I really like that. And then I'm just spraying a little water on the mat and then sticking, that's going to get my acetate sheet to stick to the mat. You could use shortening if you want to, but I thought I'd just try water this time, and it worked great. And cut this down to size. As you can tell, I'm using the, oh, if you can't tell, I'm telling you. I was using, like I said, the measurements on the mat itself. Then I put some shortening on that acetate sheet, and then I'm just gently draping that piece of fondant onto it. And once I got this all level and flush with the bottom, I did go ahead and rub out the bubbles, and then I just kind of put it to the side so that it would firm up a little bit before I cut those circles, after I'm obviously cutting the rest of it to size, because I wanted the edges of those circles to be not ragged. So I find if you let it set up for a little bit, you kind of avoid that a little bit. And what I'm using is just the varying sizes of the cutters that I used on the chocolate, the candy melt. So it's kind of alternating the geometric pattern. On one side, on one tier, it's cut out. On the top tier, it's added to it. Now I'm going to go ahead and stack these 2 tiers together before I do the gold coloring, because I found that it was easier to color both tiers at the same time if they're both going to be covered in the gold. Instead of trying to cover them separately and then stack them, you take more risk of messing with the finish if you're handling the cakes. So push those boba tea straws down, add a little ganache, put your top tier on, and then I just filled in with some more ganache. And then I'm just using plastic wrap on the board itself to kind of cover it so that there's less cleaning that needs to be done later. Since I'm using an acetate board, that plastic wrap sticks to it really well. And all I'm simply doing, and I have done this on another video as well, is just using the gold luster dust and a fluffy brush and just brushing it on there. That's it. There's no liquid at all. Luster dust love chocolate. I'm telling you, they are in love with chocolate. They stick together really well. And just make sure that you're brushing off the extra. And you kind of, once you tap the gold on, use your fluffy brush to kind of brush it in a little bit, because that kind of polishes it up a little bit, but not too hard, not too firm, because you don't want to remove it. Both of those tiers need to be chilled when you start doing that, and do it fast enough so it doesn't come to room temperature, so you don't mess with the finish. And then I took these out of the freezer and I'm just removing those circles. And then I'm using that royal icing that I made earlier. You can tell they're not exactly the same color, but you know what? It's okay. It's in the same color family. And adding that to the circles kind of tied it in a little bit, I think. And what I'm doing is adding texture with that royal icing by just kind of sticking the discs in there and then lifting that up. And what that does is it adds this stucco texture. And on the smaller ones, I did just use the spatula. Same way, just put it on the back and then use your spatula to kind of stipple it up. And then I switched to a smaller palette knife for the smaller ones. That royal icing is going to set up pretty quick. I'd say they were dry within a half an hour. So you can leave this to be one of your last steps in the decorating process. Now we're ready to attach our fondant wrap to the bottom tier. And to do that, instead of using water or Crisco, or shortening if you call it shortening, or royal icing, or piping gel, excuse me, I'm just using some more of that chocolate ganache because chocolate sticks to chocolate, right? And since that is set aside and firmed up a little bit, you don't have to worry about it sagging so much. It's going to hold itself up on your tier better once it has sat. And with fondant, don't worry about it cracking or elephant skinning as long as you are, well, the elephant skin won't happen when you do a wrap. That's only when you drape it on top. But don't let it set so long that it will crack. So I'd say use it within an hour, probably. And then I just kind of cleaned up, touched up that gold that did get touched, just with another smaller fluffy brush. And then attach your other circles onto the top tier with some more, keep on to say that, some more chocolate ganache. Now you could probably use the fondant that you cut out of the bottom tier, but I was afraid when I dip it in the royal icing, they would crack a little bit more than the candy melts. It's more of a firm texture, or a firm product. And then I'm just attaching, you carefully remove that foil, and then I'm just attaching these with some more royal, God dang it, some more chocolate ganache. And then for the bottom, I thought I'd bring that texture from the top down to the bottom because the bottom was kind of plain without any texture. So I just added some more of that royal icing, some gold luster to some more of those circles that I had left over from the top and added those to the bottom. So there she is, guys. This is my first kind of fall Halloween-esque kind of cake. Not exactly Halloween, but I think that deep purple to me is a Halloween color. And then combining it with the gold instead of like an orange, it's still kind of in the same feel. I hope you liked it. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my video. And if you'd like to watch some other videos, go ahead and click on the link to one of these other videos shown here. And if you would like to check out my other social media, I am on Facebook and Instagram under the same name, Sophisticakes by Mary. And please take the time to share, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you know when I upload another video. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next tutorial.